Some of you aren't confused by people's behavior at all. You know exactly what they meant. You just don't like what it says about them or what it says about you for allowing it. The lies and excuses you tell yourself about other people's foul behavior need to stop. I'm not saying don't show anyone grace, never put yourself in someone else's shoes. We're all human, we all screw up. I'm saying stop lying to yourself and not holding other people accountable. This is the person in your life that you continually analyze your interactions with because the words that come out of their mouth are insulting. And instead of seeing it for what it is, you frequently question, what do they mean by that? You go over conversations in your mind because you must have misinterpreted what they said. And if you keep reviewing it, you'll see that there's a perfectly logical explanation. Because there's no way they did or said what it seemed like. That would be wild. You even seek out your friend's advice. Okay, tell me if I'm overreacting about this. Maybe I am, because you can't detect tone of voice via text. Maybe they have a habit of canceling on you or not showing up at all. So you justify it by saying, well, you never know with them. They probably just forgot. You edit reality on the spot. When someone's impolite, instead of allowing that uncomfortable moment to stand on its own, you immediately swoop in to clean it up, to make it feel acceptable. When presented with a very straightforward situation, there is no need to add context and background. You shouldn't feel as though you have to build a case every time you talk about them. Prior to introducing them to someone, you have a whole list of disclaimers just to get ahead of it. That way, no one's caught off guard and no one challenges you asking, why do you allow this person to act this way toward you? They've been going through a hard time lately. They've been really stressed with work. You don't want the cold, hard facts out there, so you cushion them every time. Say they do something that genuinely bothers you, hurts you even, but instead of processing that, you downplay it. It's not that big of a deal. I don't know why that upset me so much. There are worse things, and yes, there are always worse things. But that comparison is not putting things into perspective. It's a dismissal of your own feelings. So you excuse the mistreatment and you push yourself to the side. The time spent explaining their behavior is way more than they would ever spend changing it. A ton of mental work goes into justifying something that they're not even trying to fix. And we can't hide behind selective memory. This person's constantly acting up in some way or another, so focusing on the 1 or 2 times 13 months ago they actually behaved like a decent human being is not evidence that they are kind, respectful, considerate, reliable. If you can count how many times someone wasn't terrible, that's a problem. Well, I don't want to jump to conclusions. I try to see the best in people. Energy is not the move when it comes to thoughtless people. You're not jumping to any conclusions. They've led you to the conclusion. They suck. There isn't any mystery to them or any depth of complexity that you need to discover. But what you're doing is altering your expectations to suit and enable their self-involved behavior, and it must stop. We all have our moments of being jerks. I know I have. But if you found yourself coming up for reasons for someone's jerk-like behavior more than 3 times, that's a recurring theme and not a, well, insert excuse. There's a culture, whether at work, within a family, a friend group, where there is someone who is objectively awful and everyone around just pacifies them. When you ask one of the enablers of the group, why is Carmen so nasty? Everyone's just like, oh, well, that's just Carmen. It's nothing personal. Meanwhile, Carmen tries to make everybody's lives miserable by undercutting them, making biting remarks, and just being downright rude. And she continues to get away with it because no one says anything. It's just accepted. If you address the issue with her directly, everyone sees you as the problem, not the person who's the actual problem. So why are pathetic excuses made for people? Let's talk about that. Excuses tend to form when the way someone behaves is uncomfortable or embarrassing. So you reach for reasons to make it feel tolerable and then do your best to convince yourself that what you just made up is the truth. You may be making excuses as a way to save face because it's like, well, if I'm allowing this disrespectful treatment to go unchecked, what does that say about me? Am I a pushover? Do I have a poor sense of judgment? You might really love someone, and there's a fear that if you do lay down the hammer, they won't want a relationship with you anymore because they're petty like that. You dread confrontation, so you would rather explain their behavior away than to get into a potential argument. Then again, it might not be anything like that. It could be that someone has been in your life for a long time, and you don't want to throw away all the time that you've invested into their nonsense over the years. Because then that would mean that you wasted all of this energy that you could have spent taking care of yourself or nurturing relationships with people that are actually deserving of your energy. What would change if you stopped making excuses? And why does it need to be anything other than what it is? If your friend or someone you love kept coming to you about the things that you're constantly putting up with, would you tell her that she's being too sensitive and needs to see things from the other person's perspective? Probably not. You'd say, I'm going to need you to evaluate the role that they're playing in your life because they tear you down, they aren't to be trusted, and you certainly shouldn't be making things up to excuse their rude behavior. If you can understand that, that means that you can clearly see what the deal is. But it's easier for you to call it out because you're not directly involved in the situation. The issue is you choose to be naive when it relates to you. You give countless chances, offer immense empathy, and keep volunteering to deal with disrespect when you would never dare advise someone to do the same. We've got to steer away from the generous excuses and start accurately reframing things. Because we all know at least one person who isn't supportive and can't be depended on. And since we can only control our own actions, it's up to us to decide whether we choose to accept and pander to their excuses. We can enable it or make a mental note that says, they're full of it, don't count on them for anything. You don't have to confront the person saying, I won't make excuses for you anymore. You can just take a step back instead of trying to edit their personality. Stop agreeing to things that they have already proven they won't do. For example, if someone cancels on you at the last minute again, instead of, oh, they've been really busy lately, look at it practically. What did they do? They canceled again. What does that mean? They're not reliable and don't respect my time. What to do from here? Stop making plans with them and don't expect them to follow through. If all else fails, think, what would I say to someone else in this position? I'll give you a hint. You'd say something like, they're not too busy to be considerate and not flake on you repeatedly. In this example, canceling on you at the last second or not showing up is rude. But if you keep making plans with them, you're participating in the disrespect. Being constantly confused by someone, feeling drained or disappointed after communicating with them and always trying to make sense of their behavior is not something to ignore. That's important information because they've shown you who they are. At the end of the day, it's not about being harsh or unforgiving. It's about honesty, calling things what they are without padding or distortion. Because once you strip all of that away, what you're left with is simple, and it doesn't require nearly as much mental effort. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at versionsofourselvespod. And I'll see you next time for part 2.